So how do you prevent ankle sprains in the NBA? Now, as we discussed in a previous video, ankle sprains are the #1 injury in the NBA. And you can check out this video here. Now, basketball puts a lot of force through the ankle. Now, most people will think we need to target the ankle in injury prevention terms and that will solve the problem. But the problem here is that it may not sort that problem out, because the problem could be firstly coming from somewhere else and then the ankle takes the brunt of it. Or it could even be that you are going to translate that force elsewhere. So you solve the ankle issue and you translate it into the knee or the hip or whichever. So some solutions need to be localized around the ankle, and some solutions need to be higher up and basically focusing on knee, hip, back and other areas as well. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about the local element around the ankle, and we're going to talk about the broader elements as well in terms of how you can minimize the risk of ankle sprain in basketball. So firstly, the local. So the first thing is proprioceptive training around the ankle. So what is proprioception, you may ask? So proprioception is your ability to sense joint and body position, motion and equilibrium. So in the context of basketball, this would be sensing motion at the ankle or another joint. You detect it with your nervous system through the stretch reflex, and this would cause a coordinated action of muscle contractions to take the stretch off and recorrect that position. So for example, if your ankle is turning over, you'll detect that motion before you turn your ankle and therefore contract the muscles, the perineal muscles particularly, to pull that ankle back into line, therefore saving your ankle from being sprained. So obviously this is a very important element, and it's more of a reflex speed element of reaction as opposed to a strengthening element. Now, these type of exercises classically tend to be more balance and reaction based, and equipment that's commonly used are things like wobble boards. Now, NBA teams have included this type of training into their protocols with very good success. Now, there are many exercises that you can do, but here is an example of one. It's single leg balance on your toes, and this can be seen here. Now, the next thing to focus on is strengthening around the ankle. Now, the most important local muscles that are important in saving your ankle from being sprained are your perineals, your peroneus longus and brevis, and in some cases the peroneus tertius, which doesn't exist in everybody. And they go down the outer side of your shin. The tendons insert around, some go underneath and under the foot and help with arch support as well. But they basically work on controlling that motion of turning your ankle over. So therefore, them being strong is going to help that ankle and stop it from turning over, or at least minimize that risk there. And here is an example of how you can strengthen these perineals. This is a video called ankle everter strengthening. The next area to focus on locally is footwear. Now, what's interesting is it's much harder to sprain your ankle when you're barefoot, because there's so many joints, so many movable parts, and it doesn't create a rigid lever that you pivot over like on the edge of a sole of a shoe. So this would mean that you might think, well, we should play barefoot. So you can't really be barefoot in basketball because you're going to injure yourself more with the impact that's involved. So obviously you're going to put a lot of stress through your knees and through your joints, and therefore that's not a very good idea. Plus, health and safety would probably say that you get your feet treading on and the ball bouncing on your toes is not going to be very comfortable if, of course, you were not wearing any footwear as well. So obviously trainers are needed in this regard, so you need shock absorption. But the trouble is the higher up you are with shock absorption in the sole, the more likely you are to turn over your ankle. And this has been shown biomechanically before in research. Now, one of the things that has been around for a while are high top trainers, with the idea that they go higher up the ankle and then stabilize the ankle. Now, this makes common sense, really. However, the evidence points to the fact that they don't help at all, and they may actually make things worse. Now, shoe manufacturers are actually trying all the time to try and improve their footwear to try and minimize injury risk and obviously performance benefits. And what we'll do is we'll do a future video on this very specific area of footwear, so we can go into more depth on this at a later date. Now, the other area locally is a video that we've done before, which is on ankle supports and braces. So again, you can access this video here. Now, there's some really interesting new technology that's been devised. So they've got some footwear which has got electrical stimulus in that. And what it does is it detects motion and then actually fires the muscles involuntarily, which then saves you from spraining your ankle. Now, this obviously is something that's not been rolled out or anything yet, but it's an interesting idea. So we'll have to wait and see. Right, next are the broader solutions, thinking more over the entire body, so the knees, the hips, and so on and so forth. So as we mentioned earlier, if you were to help the ankle out with all the pre-mentioned ideas, then you're going to translate forces higher up the body. So then the knee could take more strain, which obviously means the knee needs to be up to the task of that. So it's important to make sure that you can work on this area as well. So proprioceptive training broadly would be a good idea. So obviously the other exercise that we spoke about before for the ankle does actually make other areas of the body work. You can't isolate an area, but you can focus a little bit more in an area that might focus more higher up the body. So here is an example of a more broad proprioceptive exercise. It's basically a single leg squat with valgus control, and you can see that video here. So strengthening broadly is also important too. If you are weak, for example, in a muscle such as gluteus medius on the side of your hip, then this is going to cause adduction of the hip, where your hip joint allows movement of your knee inwards. That movement of your knee inwards is going to create movement at the ankle. And of course, this is going to create problems, therefore, at the ankle joint as well. So being strong in other muscles around higher up is going to change the dynamics about how your ankle moves and vice versa. A good example of a gluteus medius strengthening exercise, which is here, is a side plank off the bottom leg. The next area that's more broad is drill-based work. So this is trying to create drill work that matches basketball. So therefore it needs to focus on controlled environment work where the speed is kept slower, and then you basically build up the speed. It's also keeping the twisting and turning nature of the drill minimal at first and then building that up over time. So it's trying to basically start easy, where your body can tolerate it, and then extend that further and further towards the full demand of the entire game of basketball. The benefit of the drill is that you can focus on the drill, whereas if you're in the game of basketball, you're focusing on trying to get the ball, trying to shoot, trying to watch players move, which means you're not focusing on the skill of the motion controlling around your body. And this is why practicing this directly is going to improve your ability to do that. So therefore doing drill work will improve your ability so that it innately exists, so when you do play and you're focused on other things, you actually automatically move better, control better, and so on. So an example drill could be zigzag running. So what you can do here is you can start off slow, you can start off with wide points between the zigzags, and basically you can narrow the zigzags closer together over time, and you can speed the running speed up as well. So that's an example. There are many others, and obviously that's one of many. So this video has a lot going on, and obviously it's a lot broader and a lot more complicated than this if you're doing it for real. But these are just giving you tasters and examples of things that you can do to minimize ankle sprains in basketball. So that concludes the video today, and I'll see you next time.